Hi friends, Tony DeWitt here, Missouri appellate attorney and a guy who likes to make the law make sense on YouTube. Here's what we're discussing today. So today we're going to go over some of the comments that you all posted on the Adelson video. And I think it's important to point out a couple of things first before I get into the comments. And first of all, I want to thank everybody who had kind things to say and, really appreciated the analysis and all of that. I'm not going to go through those comments because it looks like self-praise, and I don't think that looks good. Part of being a good lawyer is being an objective analyst of facts. In other words, looking at them from two sides, looking at them from the standpoint of the prosecution and how they can be characterized, and looking at them from the standpoint of the defense, how they can be characterizing the same facts and the same statements and the same testimony. The ability to be objective and to focus in on the facts as opposed to the characterizations is an important part of being able to advise clients. One of the things that happens when you sort of get invested in a case, particularly a case as spectacular and spectacularly bad with as many malignant actors as the Adelson case has, is it's possible to lose your objectivity and focus in only on what you want to believe as opposed to what someone who is truly objective and unbiased might think about the same thing. I'm not saying that's what all of these commenters did, because I don't think it is. I'm simply putting it out there by saying when I make a statement and offer an alternative explanation, it's not necessarily because I believe that explanation. It's because I know that if I were on the defense or if I were on the prosecution, that's what I'd be saying. I do appreciate your comments, and I especially appreciate the comments of the people who disagreed with me and who were polite and kind. And I also appreciate the one who was kind of funny. So we'll get to that here in a little bit. When I got into YouTube, I initially thought it would be a good idea to have a channel making fun of lawyers getting in trouble with their bar associations. And indeed, some of those cases are just howlers. I mean, they're really pretty funny. But I think they're only funny to attorneys because the attorneys recognize that no real lawyer would ever do most of these things. So that was sort of where my channel was focused, and then I started doing the more general topics, and I didn't really get into, it didn't really start drawing followers until I started talking about cases. So that's what I did. Well, the first case of the Adelsons that I followed and that I did any videos on was Charlie's case. And so I have not had an opportunity to sit down and watch the whole Magbanua trial and anything else, or the trial of the killers. I don't even know if that one was live streamed. The bottom line is that, I'm sort of held captive by the knowledge that I have, and it's probably incomplete in a lot of ways. So there does seem to be something of a common theme in many of these comments, and this is what that common theme is. Everyone knows it's Wendy. The first of the comments that I want to deal with was a critical comment, but that did a really good job of laying out the basis for her disagreement. And so I want to give kudos to her, and I want to go through her analysis right now. She says, I partially agree with your video, except when it comes to Wendy handling herself on the stand. For one, as a layperson, I don't like Wendy's inability to answer a question. For example, when asked, does Charlie own a Ferrari? Wendy's response was, he owns a fancy car, but I don't know the name. I drive a minivan. I don't see what the issue is with saying he does, yes, he does. Okay, so that is a great comment because it gives me something definitive to respond to. And here's the reason why, as a lawyer, Wendy knows better than to answer the question as asked. He owns and basically she says, does Charlie own a Ferrari? Well, unless Wendy has absolute knowledge that it is a Ferrari, and she may not, maybe she just chose not to answer this question because she's being obstreperous. I don't know. But assuming that she's not a motorhead and she doesn't know a Ferrari from a Lamborghini from a Corvette, assuming that she doesn't know any of that, then she's probably going to answer it this way. Yeah, he owns a fancy car. I don't know what he is. I don't know what it is. I drive a minivan. I've got kids, I don't see that as being a deliberate attempt to obfuscate the truth. But I also agree with her when she could have said, yeah, he does drive a fancy car, and left it at that. When you try to introduce other facts, like I drive a minivan, it begins to look like you're crafting a narrative. And when you're talking with the prosecutor, that's not really a good idea, because the more things you say when you're on the witness stand, the more questions you are going to get asked. So she says another example is Wendy, who was asked by Georgia if her parents were wealthy, responded, I don't know, it depends on what you mean by wealthy. Once again, she could have said yes. She could have if she believed her parents were wealthy. You have to remember that she grew up in that family, and she probably knows peripherally what their income and net worth is based on where they live and how they live. But being wealthy is a concept that varies with who you're talking to. If you ask the guy who's living in his car whether the guy who owns a $50,000 house is wealthy, he's probably going to say, yeah, he's got his own house. Wealth is a very malleable concept, and so when you ask them to define their terms, I don't see that as being problematic. But again, as the lady here says, she could have just said yes. She didn't. And does it look like she's picking nits? You'll have to tell me. I can understand why that would be off-putting. I really can. But I'm not sure that it crosses into mendacity. Best of all is Wendy's excuse for denying the Markells visitation or access to the grandchildren, saying that the Markells wanted to put her grandchildren in foster care and leave them permanently if she was arrested. Come on, it's laughable. Well, I don't think that's exactly what she said. What I think she said is she was responding to the question of, wasn't that a kind thing for Mrs. Markell to do? And I think what she was saying is, putting my kids in foster care, I'm their mom, they need to be with me, and then Georgia basically backtracked and said, well, wasn't it only for the period of time that it would take her to get down there to take care of them? And the response again to that one was probably a little more strained. It was like, well, she didn't know whether she was going to leave them there or not. And I think that's disingenuous. Again, you have to understand that people are human, and a lot of times, when you have a disagreement with someone's son that you're married to and the in-laws get involved, there is some sort of natural antipathy that comes up out of that. Plus, Wendy calling her 800-page divorce and contentious custody battle as copacetic. Well, you have to remember that 400 of those 800 pages are probably Dan's. So, that cuts both ways. The fact of the matter is that one of the things that frequently happens just psychologically with people when they lose someone who has been important in their life, and clearly Dan was important in Wendy's life. He gave her 2 beautiful kids, right? When you lose someone like that, there tends to be a reconstruction of your memory such that you remember the good things and you don't remember the bad things. Having been through a divorce, I know that I have tried very, very hard to wash out all of the bad memories because there were good memories there. And I would rather talk to my grandchildren about the good memories than the bad memories, because I believe in being kind and focusing on the future and their development. So I can understand where she might have come off on that, but I do think that you have to recognize that it was a very contentious battle and that there were, a lot of arrows fired on both sides and some of them hit. But this is my favorite part of the comment here. But the cherry on top was that Donna, her mother, baked a banana bread for Dan and gave him a hug. So I wonder if he ate the banana bread. I wouldn't have. I would have assumed that, maybe there was something in there I shouldn't have. And as for a hug, I would have thought maybe he would have checked her for weapons first. But at any rate, this is probably one of those really good examples of how you respond to someone's non-specific opinion about Wendy handling herself on the stand. Because I did not deal directly with each individual question. So again, kudos to this particular commenter here, because she's done an excellent job of setting forth her rationale for why she had trouble believing Wendy's testimony. And, if I were the lawyer who is representing Wendy, if she ever does get indicted, if I were the lawyer representing Wendy, if she ever got indicted, I would encourage him to come and look at all of the comments on YouTube, because that is a better way to do jury research than just about anything. You find out what all of the people there who are making these comments think, and then you sit down and you take your witness to charm school and you explain sometimes it's better to just say, as this poster puts out, yes, he does. Now let's juxtapose that comment with these comments. You'll be wrong, as Wendy lied repeatedly on the stand. Lied repeatedly. Okay, how? Where? Why? What makes you think it's a lie? How can that lie be proven? Those are kind of things that are important to point out. And then Martha down here. Wendy did terrible on the stand. Her attitude was terrible, and she lied many times, and the prosecution can prove it. Okay, again, when, how, where? Give me some facts. Don't just say she lied 3 times on the stand. Because when I hear that, here's what I hear. I hear you repeating what you've heard elsewhere. I don't hear you making a determination on the basis of factual information. I hear you repeating what other people have said, that she lied on the stand 3 times. Now that may be true. I don't know. I did not find 3 lies in her testimony. I went through it pretty carefully. And I have an explanation for that too. Let's suppose I ask you to describe how you spent the day yesterday. And you say, well, I got up, I took the kids to school, I came home, played around the house, ate lunch, got up at 3, went and picked the kids up from school, and because I picked them up from school, and we usually do it, I run by Quick Trip and I get them a soda and I bring them home. And the rest of the day, I just, I fixed supper and then, went to bed at 9 o'clock. And that's your summary of how you spent the day. And then suppose I came back a week from now and asked you the same question. And you completely omitted going to Quick Trip and getting fountain drinks. Would that be an indication that you were lying? Or would it be an indication that you simply had something wash out of your memory? Because things do wash out of your memory. One of the things that I always told healthcare professionals when I did seminars on malpractice and avoiding liability for malpractice is that you have to write it down. You have to chart it. You have to document it. And this applies to anybody who deals with things where litigation might be involved. If you write it down, you can prove you did it. Because I wrote it down at the time, it becomes a business record, and you get to introduce it into evidence to support whatever defense you have. And the reason you need to write things down, of course, is because things wash out of your memory. There's a huge gap in there in that narrative where, I got up and I took the kids to school. Well, did you feed them breakfast? Did you get them dressed? What else did you do? As a result of questioning, people will often add things that they didn't put in before. That doesn't mean they're lying. It means they didn't remember that at the time they were giving you that information. Well, I can't respond to she lied 3 times without giving me some indication of where that was, what those lies were, where I might find them. You don't have to give me specifics like at 14.46 on the timeline in this video, you'll find her saying X, Y, and Z. But what you could do is say, well, look at this particular video and what she says about, topic A. That would be very helpful to me, because then I could go find that and look at it and see if I agree with you or not. Now, I have to say that it is very possible that she did lie, maybe even multiple times on the stand. I just haven't seen proof of that yet. And the prosecution may very well have proof. If they have documents, they have video. There are ways that you can prove up a lot of lies that way. And if they have that, maybe that's the case. But again, I have not seen that, at least to this point, I haven't seen that. Well, gosh, we're 14 minutes into this video, and I haven't gotten to the funniest comment yet. So let me get to that now. I laughed for 5 minutes when I got this comment. Can you please finish trimming your mustache? Thanks. Okay, when I look at videos, I don't look quite as close maybe as I should. But in that particular case, I went and looked, and it did look like there were like two little sort of hair fangs coming down out of my mustache. And my wife usually trims my beard and my mustache for me every other Saturday. She cuts my hair, and usually she takes really good care of me in that regard. But every now and again, I had this episode in the 1970s where I got a dose of steroids, and it made my hair grow like crazy. Now, of course, today, right, it's all gone. Maybe it all grew out. Anyway, I had lots of hair through here. I had like Wolfman eyebrows, and I even had hair down underneath here. So I did sort of look like, Teen Wolf, I guess. But the one place that seems to grow faster than anywhere else in my body is my mustache. And I can trim it on Monday, and by Tuesday, it will look like I've been run through a brush pile backwards. So to innuendo, hey, I apologize. I know it must have been distracting if you commented on it. But I hope you stick around, and I hope you make more comments, because every now and then having a non-substantive comment on a video does sort of break the tension for me. Now here's an interesting comment. She says, I wonder why Charlie is on the witness list as well as his distant brother/son, Robert Adelson. Well, I wonder that too. I mean, I suppose they could be working to get Charlie to testify against his mom. And if that happened, I think that would certainly be the nail in the coffin. But the problem with putting Charlie on the witness stand is that he's going to invoke the Fifth Amendment. And even if they give him use immunity, what good does it do him at that point? He has already been convicted. There is nothing more that the state can do to him. And so if they put him on the stand and he lies and says, Mom didn't have anything to do with this, or does something else that the prosecution doesn't like, what are they going to do? Take away his collection of Mad Magazine? I don't know what they would do that would really have any impact on him. And so if they bring him up and put him on the stand and he doesn't say anything, or he asserts the Fifth, if they grant him immunity and he still doesn't testify, well, the only thing that the state can do to punish you or to compel you to testify is put you in jail. He's already in prison. What are they going to do? I suspect this is more just for intimidation value. You have to remember that the same lawyer who is representing Mrs. Adelson is also representing Charlie, and also did represent Charlie, and has information about Charlie. They could be setting up a motion to disqualify counsel based on a conflict of interest. But again, blood is thicker than water, and I doubt very seriously if Charlie is going to throw Mama from the train. But we'll have to see. The question down below it, who made the decision to murder Dan? I have no idea, but I suspect it was Donna and Charlie. Again, I just haven't seen anything that compels a conclusion that Wendy was there. When these two talk, as someone else commented, when these two talked on the phone, they never mentioned Wendy, other than a passing reference to Wendy in one of those phone calls where they said, you know, when Donna said I was only good to take care of the kids or something to that effect, which sounded a little whiny to me, but, you know, I guess if I was sitting in lockup, I might be a little whiny too. All right, I could go on and on and on with all of this stuff, and I'm not going to do that. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because we're already at 19 minutes. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of a flavor as to what I saw in the comments, and thank everybody who did comment. I spent some time commenting or replying to a lot of these comments because I had the time this week to do that. Don't always have that time, but thank you very much for dropping the comments. I especially want to thank people who disagreed politely and with facts, and who brought facts. It's okay to bring the fire, as long as you bring the facts, all right? That's my rule. And, you know, I am human. I can be wrong. And if I'm wrong, you know, if they wind up indicting Wendy, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. And if they wind up convicting her, I'll be the first to admit that I was wrong. But at this point, I don't see that as a likelihood. But, you know, things change. People change. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have the opportunity, please do something kind for someone. Where we spend a lot of time in our Opelika house, we are close to a Marriott where we have the ability to go to the swimming pool there. And last night, when we went to the swimming pool, my wife found two women who were talking about how bad the bugs were and how they had to sit near the fire pit so that the smoke would drive away all of the mosquitoes. And my wife told her what we do when we go for a walk in the evening. We take dryer sheets and we clip them to our clothes. I clip one to my hat because they always get me in the back of the neck. So the dryer sheets actually repel the bugs a lot better than all those oily sprays and stuff like that you wind up feeling like you have to take a shower. At any rate, a random act of kindness for people who were being troubled by something, and my wife had the solution. It's a good thing to help people out and to offer them suggestions when they have a problem like that. And kindness is never repaid, it's only passed on. So if you have the opportunity, do a kindness today. And then after you do, come on back, join me down here at the beach, and we'll talk about something else. Maybe other comments. If you like this video, here are a few others you might try, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a terrific day, guys.